Hello there, Sean Kosofsky here, the Nonprofit Fixer, and today's video is all about how you hire a development director, how you hire your top fundraiser at your organization to raise money and coordinate all the different revenue streams in your organization. So today I'm going to walk through this tool I have, which you can grab down in the description below, called the Development Director Hiring Matrix. And I use this tool to help eliminate bias when I'm hiring. And when I mean bias, it doesn't necessarily mean by sex, race, age, or a protected class. It's about favoritism. It is about leaning toward a particular candidate because they're charismatic, or maybe for some people because of bias or prejudice. But for most hiring professionals, they're probably thinking of eliminating bias as a way to not let non-essential qualities shine through during the interview process. The interview process is the most emotional part of the hiring process. Some people might think, well, isn't the interview all of the hiring process? No. There's recruiting, there's the application process, there's the screening, there's the background check, there's a lot of different parts, and there's the reference check. There's a lot of different parts, but the interview process can be swayed very easily by candidates who are excellent but bad interviewers, or they are poor workers but great interviewers. They're very charismatic, and you want to try to reduce all of that bias. So you can use this for any hiring at all, but I want to show you this tool for a development director just as a model, because it is usually the second or third hire that a nonprofit does or makes. So I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger, but essentially you can see here, you would create some categories on the left-hand side that are really important for the position, like flexibility on schedule, ability to write grants, history making major donor asks. You would put the categories on the left and you would give a less than stellar score of a -1. And then you can see that if they have only some or very little of a certain skill, they're going to get a score of a 0. If they have plenty of a particular skill or experience, you're going to give them a +1 or just a 1. And then in the first column, you give weight. Sorry, the second column, the first column to the right, is you're going to weight the different skills. So the higher up in the box you are, the more important the skill. So you can see on the first one, grant writing. If they've got little experience, they're going to get a -1 in this scoring box. If they've got some, they're going to get a 0, pretty neutral. If they've got lots, they're going to get a +1. And then the weight is 10, 0 to 10. 10 is the highest. We need our development director to be good at writing grants. Therefore, we've given it a weight of 10. Further down the list, you can see some things are weighted at 9 or 8 or 7. And then, are they good at using hardware? That's still on the list, but it's weighted very weakly at 4. Then, in the rating column, you're going to pretty much give your score. So you can see there's a blank one here. You would then give the weighting for your organization. You would be giving the rating, but back to the example here, you would multiply the weight by your score. So every score is going to be -1, maybe -0.5, 0, 0.5, or 1, right? You can have anyone on this range. In general, I don't recommend doing like elaborate, fractions here, but generally you want to have a -1, maybe a -0.5, 0, 0.5, and then a full 1. You calculate their full score in that score column. So as you can see in the grant writing row, this was weighted with a 10. The person got a +1. 10 times 1 equals 10. And then let's go further down. For the writing skills, it was weighted at a 9, and they got a +1, so then they got 9 in their score. Then you go to the bottom in that yellow cell and you're going to total up their score. And it usually comes out to like something close to like 100 or maybe 90. This person got a 79. So when you are interviewing 5 candidates, you can look back at this score and all ask yourselves, wow, I really thought Jane was the terrific candidate in the mix, but when I look back at their matrix, it doesn't look so at all. It looks like they were number 3. And it's harder for the data to lie. It's harder for the data to be wrong than your impressions. That's why we do the matrix and the matrices when we're hiring any position, because it helps you make better decisions. And then you can have some notes on the right-hand side there. So that is basically how I use the sample matrix. And again, I'll show you the blank version of it. The hiring matrix is for what position. You'd write development director or program director, who's the applicant name, who's the interviewer, and what's the date of the interview, so you don't get your sheets messed up. One other thing I will say is, as you're asking your screeners, let's say 3 people are doing the interviewing, you might have multiple candidates applying for a job and you have different screeners for different interviews. That's okay. It's important if you have like Mary, Bob, and Steve interviewing the first 2 candidates and Frank, Larry, and Bob interviewing the second 3 candidates. You might get different scoring approaches, but in general, you'll want to tell everyone, hey, we're going to try to score people generously, or we're going to try to score people more conservatively. Either way, you'll want to give instructions to your different screeners about how to use the tool so that there's some consistency. You don't want people giving a different kind of scoring method to one person and then changing how they do it toward the end of the whole hiring process, right? You want them to be pretty consistent across the board. So that's how you'd use this form, and I have found a lot of luck with it. And if you were to try using this in your organization, I would love it if you'd tell me if it worked for you. I've done this dozens of times and used this with many organizations, and it usually helps a lot to have a weighting and scoring system. Subscribe down below if you like this content, and let me know if you're using the tool at all yourself. Thank you so much.